Oh hey, servers are down, look at that. Great time to record a video, I guess, huh? Let's get started. So, this is gonna be a video about one-phasing the final boss of Spire the Watcher, Persys, while solo. And I believe this is the first time this has been done, aside from some weird glitch bug where you just kind of like insta-kill him while he's still immune, which I don't count as this, because this is actually during the damage phase. That's a whole separate issue thing, though. So this is going to be using the Fourth Horseman Wombo Ultra Deluxe bug with the insane damage. However, I do want to point out that A, there's no divinity, so it doesn't easy aim for you, and B, this boss's crit box is absolute and utter garbage. If you ever did this boss, even with a fire team, and you didn't use divinity and you try to use a precision weapon on him, you know my pain. Now, take that knowledge and then imagine using a shotgun that has the recoil of using a railgun from a guy who has drank 100 cups of coffee, and you kind of get the Fourth Horseman experience. Essentially, you have to do everything absolutely, utterly, perfectly to even get this done, even with the nutty damage. And the gun itself, just on its own, still isn't enough to get the kill in one phase. You have to actually combine a bunch of things together, including your Armored Exotic perk, plus using any other debuff methods to your advantage. Now, I doubt anybody wants me to ramble on exactly how I did every single thing in this fight, so I'm not going to do that. If you have a question about that, feel free to ask in the comments, and I'll answer there. By the way, while you're down there, like, share, subscribe. It does help the channel. Much appreciated. But in the run itself, I'm just going to go over quickly what I used, and then you can make your own educated guesses based off of that. I used any primary. In this case, it was the Immortal, just because maybe I needed it to shoot nodes or take a head off of a Goblin, which does matter in this fight. Then for the energy slot, obviously, first in, last out, plus Fourth Horseman. And in the final slot, Commemoration, because I just abuse all the adds / Minotaurs / Hydras until I get to the damage phase, and just pick up orbs, get volatile rounds, cleanse myself with some health, etc. Then for armor, I used the Fellwinter's Helm, which again I'll prop up on screen for people that don't know what that does. Essentially, it's my own version of a tractor cannon shot or a tether shot, just with less duration in this case because I'm using goblins, so it's only a 5-second debuff on Persys, I believe, but it's still enough to get the job done. Now, normally I would say mods don't really matter in the long run for things like this, but in this particular case, they actually did matter, so I'll go over some of them that I used that I think were very clutch. First up, Void Siphon. During my shenanigans with Commemoration, it would make an orb off of that. Plus, I had Shattering Orbs on my artifacts, so every time I broke a shield off a Minotaur, I made an orb off of that. And, obviously, when I break a shield, just using Shield Break Charge in my gloves, that would also make an orb. And I needed to consistently, and I mean consistently, keep up a ×3 armor charge on my boots in order to either do full damage with my weapon or use those 3 charges as a special finisher on my class item to make an extra green brick in front of the, I guess, damage splash zone where I would fight Persys just in case I needed a green brick for the finish. Now, speaking of my boots, I did run X3 Arc Surge, which won't surprise anybody, but I did want to mention that I actually had 2 pairs of boots for this, one regular pair with X3 Arc Surge, and then Lunafactions with the same thing, which I have before I pop my well, then I put it down, and then I switched to Fellwinter's Helm. And same thing with the class item, I had 2 copies for that as well. One copy ran Special Finisher to get the green brick if I needed it, then I would switch to a second copy, which would run Reaper and 2 time dilations, so one to extend my armor charge timer, and then Reaper for when I pop my Rift right before damage phase to then kill 2 enemies, which would give me an orb off of Reaper, and then an orb off killing 2 enemies because of my Void Siphon. Now, to keep up all of these orb spawn generations, I needed to actually meme the goblins a little bit here, so what I did was I would make them headless when I was getting close to damage phase, therefore they would follow me around the arena, and then when I came back out of the zone, when I made Persys go immune inside, I would break the shell off a Minotaur, then the goblins would follow me, I would go to middle, pop my Rift, then I would kill 2 of the goblins, so I would make an orb off of that, plus an orb off of Reaper, close the doors down, make sure damage phase is starting, and then make sure I am at least 2 armor charges, because then I would pick up the 3rd orb on the ground, which would put me to X3 armor charges to give me maximum damage for the damage phase. Finally, let's talk about that dumbass Persy himself. So, I already covered the crit box, it's garbage, let's just move on from that. The other thing about this is Persys just moves in a straight line, and he basically does not care where you are, who you are, how you're standing, etc. He will just walk straight by you, and that'll be that. Key thing to note here, if he moves, the run's dead. If he pushes you over, the run's dead. If he stomps and it makes you fly even a little bit, the run is dead, because 4th Horseman's range, even with Lunafactions, is comically bad, and you need to place your shots absolutely perfectly to hit him. So anything that can happen that's even a slight misstep to what your plan is, runs over pretty much. So what I did to try to combat this even a little bit is that I would make multiple Goblin Headless, and then they would follow me around. I would start damage phase, pop my well, all that nonsense. And then as they followed me up, I would meet them up between where Persy is, and then I would do a finisher, which still does trigger Felwinter's Helm. So the finisher would make it so that I don't get flown when Persy stops, but also would weaken him. Then I would switch out to my 4th Horseman, and then get my damage off of with that, switch back, and then try to get a second volley off. And then before that, Persy would stomp one more time, which I would hopefully not get flown too far, and then use my Celestial Fire melee to kill another Goblin, which would once again trigger Felwinter's Helm to make him weakened a second time, and at that point, I would go in for the kill. That's all I got, but again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask, and I'll try to get to them in the comments. Aside from that, enjoy the video. Again, like, share, subscribe. It does help the channel. Much appreciated, and I'll catch you guys in the next video, which will probably be about guarding games, alright? Goodbye.